All right, everybody. Well, welcome. My name is Dana Mantilia, and I am the founder of Identity Protection Planning. And today we're going to cover a great topic that we're all talking about these days. It's the cybersecurity choice, or we happen to be forced to do this. So we're going to go over a couple of quick statistics. So right now, 58% of the malware attack victims are small businesses. So almost 60% are small businesses. However, only 14% of small business owners will tell you that their cybersecurity plan is effective. So that's not good. And companies that have less than 100 employees are being affected by 76% of the attacks. So fewer than 100 employees, and those are the ones that 76% are attacking. And those are the ones that I always hear saying to me that they don't need to worry about it because they don't have anything important for anybody to take, right? And under 50 employees, 1 in 3 operations with under 50 employees, they're using free or consumer grade cybersecurity protection. So that's a little bit scary too. So in the research done in the UK and the US showing that 43% of small and medium-sized business owners are not prepared, and they're leaving most of their sensitive financial and consumer data out there. So that's not good. It's at risk. And as humans, now this is what we want to talk about is as choice or by force. We like as humans to make our own decisions. We don't like when somebody tries to force us to do things. So that being taken into consideration, if we want to, we could be proactively choosing to prepare our organizations for cybersecurity and all that kind of stuff. Or we could say, nope, I'm not going to do anything. I have cyber liability insurance. If you do have cyber liability insurance, and I'm just going to wing it. The problem with that is if you do become a victim and you get attacked, then luckily, if you have that cyber liability insurance, it's going to cover you and you'll still stay in business. If you don't have that insurance, you probably will not be in business. And then if you did have the liability insurance and you have one choice now you're going to get forced. You're going to be forced to do all this stuff. So instead of waiting for all this mess to happen, if we just take some proactive steps, just what we're going to talk about today, and getting our organizations prepared for something to happen, we're much better off doing that. So today on our Cyber Talks, we are going to be joined by our awesome guest, Jay Jay Davey, and he is one of the most followed voices in cybersecurity. I'm going to read off his credentials here. Very impressive. Jay is a Tier 2 SOC analyst with CyberClan, an ambassador to Cyber Mentor Dojo the last 9 years. He has been working with some great organizations, including the British Army. What else here? I got to turn the page here. He worked with NetPay Solutions, Carnival UK, and Cybersecurity Engineer and Security Analyst, respectively. And he's also helps aspiring SOC analysts with mentoring and support, which I think is fantastic. Is what we all need to be doing in this industry, is helping to support people and that want to get into it, because there's a lot of opportunities for young people to get into cybersecurity, as we know. So going over some of the recent studies, the average breach is costing between $120,000 and $1.24 million. That's just crazy. I mean, small businesses cannot deal with this. And that's just in the small business market that we have. And yet only 20% of the respondents that took a survey with the 2020 Q1 CNBC said they plan to invest in cybersecurity software. Only 20%. So we're all talking about all these dangers. We're all talking about the risks that are out there. And yet only 20% of folks are going to be investing in this. So our first question today, JJ, are you ready?
Hit me. Let's go.
Okay. Do small businesses still see cybersecurity as a major concern?
Yes and no. So it depends on what industry they're operating in. But majority of the small businesses don't see it as a concern until it is a concern for them. Something as simple as a data impact analysis will tell them that they're holding so much sensitive information on customers and third-party suppliers that they can be a lucrative target. And with the likes of the ICO barking down the ears of people that are being breached, they should be held by an example to say, hey, this what could happen if you don't take it seriously. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that they see it as a cost to them. They see security as a cost, and it's not really a profit generating business venture for them. However, it could potentially have a return on investment if proactive steps are taken to protect their business from cybersecurity attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that until people start to realize that, yes, it's a cost, of course it's a cost, but there's lots of things that are costs that we embrace and we say, oh, we have to have this. So it's when are we going to make that transformation to say this isn't something that's like an optional thing? We really need to kind of get our act together here. I don't know what has to happen. Do you have any idea what you think has to happen before that occurs? that light bulb goes off?
I think there needs to be some refinement around the general awareness that's delivered to businesses. So we have a lot of emphasis on security awareness training, but we don't have a lot of emphasis on business awareness, making businesses aware of the threats. I mean, a lot of the times it's just doom and gloom. We're not giving them the facts and the figures. We're not saying, hey, you could potentially save this much amount of money, because at the end of the day, the business is there to generate money. So they want to know how much they can protect, how much investment they could probably gain from the trust that they build with stakeholders based on how serious they take security. Unfortunately, the awareness is just not quite cutting it today. We're having too much focus around doom and gloom and not enough about how we could potentially benefit the business to operate more effectively.
Yeah, and if you go back to the day, way back before the internet, and you said, would you ever leave work and leave the door open, not have the alarm set, and just let anybody come and go until you came back the next day? No one would ever do that. So that's just if we think along those lines, or try to get people to think along those lines, that it's the same thing we're trying to do. We're just trying to keep our stuff secure. That, sometimes thinking about that physical vision helps you to think about, okay, that makes sense. But I don't know how we wind up making people actually think that way. So, all right, our next question is, how should organizations approach cybersecurity, and should they see it as an expense or an investment? Cyber insurance certainly isn't going to cut it. We all know that.
So businesses need to look at cybersecurity as not just a technical problem, but a business problem. There's too much thought process around it being ones and zeros, bits and bytes, and IP addresses, but it's a lot more than that. It is a business issue. And if we start to see not just cybersecurity, but information security as something business needs to be proactive with to help them generate more profits and protect their profits and protect their customers, then it's going to become more in the face of executives as opposed to being a technician's problem. A lot of the times I'm finding that cybersecurity problems are being thrown at IT teams with no actual leadership decisions or anyone being held accountable or anyone even generally owning the risks.
Yeah, that's a very good point, is that people, the IT department will take care of that. They'll set something up. And, their IT people are extremely intelligent, but their brains think completely differently than the average people that are in the business, that are causing some of the problems, that are clicking on things, that are giving away credentials, that are doing all that stuff. And I don't think IT people necessarily want to be the ones that are going to go do the training or setting something up. They want to stick with the hardware and the software and the non-people aspect of it. So you're absolutely right. That's what people need to realize, that they need to find a way to have like a middleman or something that's going to somehow communicate what the IT guy knows needs to be done with the regular people. So I don't know exactly how that's going to be done. Do you have any suggestions for that?
I think again, it boils down to that general awareness. It's knowing that it's a business problem, not just a technical problem. But until you know that, you're going to always think it's a technical problem. Until we realize that it's going to impact the stakeholders, the board, the customers, and overall the kind of image that the customers see your business in, are we going to take it seriously? Until then, it's an upwards battle.
That's a really good point, because, when you think about how are your customers going to look at you if something happens, are they going to start to question, well, how are you keeping everything else secure? What about this and what about that? I just recently had a situation where I reached out to someone who they received a letter in the mail that they were a victim of, a breach, and it was with a CPA firm. So I reached out to the CPA firm to, number one, make sure, sorry, that's my dog. Number one, make sure that it was legitimate, because it could have been completely, not, hey, no. So anyway, so I sent an email and I said, I'm curious, is this real? And he said, yes, it's real. It's something that happened 20 months ago. And legal said, we just have to send out these letters. And I was like, no, I don't think that's necessarily the way your customers want to hear. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. I'm coming back.
I thought we was going to get a co-host.
Oh my goodness, it's a puppy. It's a little puppy, and he doesn't usually bark, but I guess he found his voice while we were on our show. So I apologize about that.
That's fine.
So I sent this email and I said, what is this? Is this real? So he said, yes. Oh, legal said we just need to mail out these letters. So I said to him, I said, well, it says in here that very sensitive information, such as your name, social security number, address, driver's license information, and financial information was in the breach. So you have to understand, when a customer gets that letter, they're not thinking, oh, legal just told them to send this out. They're thinking, this is really, really bad. So I thought that was kind of a really bad way for that guy to deal with that whole thing. So anyway, that's that. So here's our next one. So as far as how these companies are approaching cybersecurity, one thing that I always talk about is with the training all the way down, trickling down, and it not being a check the box kind of thing, but being like a cultural change, and how we implement that cultural change. So like you said, it's not all doom and gloom, bad. It's just something we need to do. And I sometimes suggest that if we start to think about helping people learn how to protect themselves and their families and their homes, because our homes are getting smarter every single day, that might actually help, teach them to change a shift in mentality. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think I'm going to kind of talk negatively about the cybersecurity managers, leaders, whatever it may be. There needs to be a shift in their kind of mentality to the problem. Instead of being a no person, simply asking a question such as, how can I help you operate the way you're doing in a safe and secure manner? How can I enable what you're doing? And having those kind of discussions, those two-way discussions with different parts of the business and different stakeholders, you're going to build relationships. And that's where the cultural change comes from. At the moment, a lot of security departments are being seen as the no men. They don't go to security because they will stop you from doing it. And that builds a negative culture. That builds barriers. And people try and circumnavigate your currently implemented security controls because of it. And if you see someone circumnavigating your security controls, just ask them saying, hey, I've noticed you've done this. You're not in trouble, but I want to know how I can help you do this safer. I want to know how I can enable you. Is there anything that you need? And having that kind of mature two-way discussion is not only going to help you enable the business, it's going to help you build those relationships, which what security needs to thrive. If you're just seen as the blockers, you're going to be pushed to the side and you're not going to be a functional requirement for the business.
That is an excellent point. They do see the IT people as the bad guys. Oh, this is the guy that's going to make my job harder, put more roadblocks, make me do things 2 times because he wants me to do multi-factor authentication. This is a waste of time and it just slows my day down. So that's a very good point. That is definitely something that has to be addressed. And I guess they just need to learn that you're not the bad guys. It's just that we need to shift the way we're doing things, and it's going to take a little longer, but it's like anything. You get used to it. If something takes a couple of seconds longer, you get used to it, and then you move on. But that's an excellent point. I think that's really, really good. And have you worked with much when it comes with cyber liability insurance on your side? Like, have you had to deal with helping someone put a claim through and stuff like that? Because sometimes that is a lot harder than people think. It's not just like, oh, good, here, call the insurance company, they're going to take care of this.
So I've had a lot of dealings with. I've had visibility of these kind of dealings going on, and I do think there's kind of an over-reliance on cyber security insurance as a whole, as people see it as a complete risk transfer, which it's not. You're not transferring all the risk. You're only transferring that risk for one time, and they're probably not going to insure you again. And a lot of insurance providers now are hoping that you're doing the bare minimum, and they require you to have certifications such as ISO 27001 or Cyber Essentials Plus as a bare minimum for their assurance that you're doing everything you can. It's just like taking your car for an MOT. They want to know that you're doing the best you can to make your road or your business safe for use. So what we're seeing now is businesses are using this as kind of the scapegoat for not having proper cybersecurity controls within their business. They think, hey, let's just do the insurance and so it's all fine. But when a breach does happen, they realize that the process is incredibly difficult to make a claim. There needs to be forensic teams come into play to find all the evidence, to paint a picture of what's happened before the claim go on. It's just like if you have a car accident and you want to get an insurance claim, there needs to be photos taken, there needs to be evidence, there needs to be police reports, and it's a long, arduous process for you to get that claim. And it all could have been avoided with simple security controls.
And I also think that, because of the ransomware attacks that are just multiplying, every single day, that the insurance, the premiums are starting to go through the roof. So before somebody even thinks about getting the insurance, these things are going to get to be so costly that they're not even going to be a viable option. So that's the other thing too. So once that option is taken out of your hands, then we really have no other choice but to actually start addressing this. So just quickly on the these consumer grade products, let's talk about how effective they are. How you talk about and share with us what your thoughts are on the level of protection they're providing.
So I've got to be careful with what I say here, but they can be good in mitigating risk to a certain level. You have to look at this problem as risk. And what you're doing is effectively you're trying to lower the level of impact and the lower probability that that risk is going to come into fruition. Now, the way you do that is by implementing security controls. Now, those security controls also need to be gauged by quality. So a lot of people look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, for example, to try and gauge suitability of tools, which sometimes isn't the best because you have to look at use cases. That tool may not be fit for purpose for your particular business and your use cases. So when it comes to consumer grade tools and open source tools, you need to step back and ask yourself, is this fit for purpose? Is it actually properly managing the risks that I'm looking to manage? And you can only assure you that with proper testing. And I'm not meaning the likes of pen testing, but even just monitoring it over a set period of time and thinking, hey, we saw this risk a month ago. Going back 4 weeks or going forward 4 weeks, have we seen a change in the posture? Are we seeing a reduction? And that's a simple way to give yourself assurances with those metrics. Now, a lot of these free tools don't give you that ability, but you can just gauge it by reported incidents or potential incidents that have happened on machines, and just doing a month-by-month comparison. Even with vulnerability scanners, let's take a free vulnerability scanner, for example, something like OpenVAS. It's a free open source tool. It's better than nothing. It's going to identify vulnerabilities. But if you could do a month-on-month comparison of the level of vulnerabilities in your environment and it's reducing, that's a positive impact to your security posture. So that's a good way to gauge the effectiveness on your tools. So it's not always about having the best tool. It's making sure it's the right tool for the job.
And, I think sometimes, though, the problem is that a lot of these business owners, they don't understand very, very much when it comes to, the IT or the cybersecurity things. So they don't even really know what they should be looking for. And, I say this when I talk to these MSPs to say, how do you differentiate yourself when you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand cybersecurity or IT? You're saying Chinese, the next person is saying Chinese, and the next person is saying Chinese because they don't know. They don't really know how to even differentiate which one is the best way to go, which tools should I be buying, which team should I go with, kind of thing. So that brings us to another question of how do they decide which tools or which solutions or which company they're going to do business with is going to be a good fit for them?
So initially, the first step that you should take is, I'm going to say it again, risk. Identify the risks to your business, threat model your business and understand the threats that's going to impact your business. Then you need to look at the kind of security controls from a very high level, what you're going to need to manage those risks. And then you need to look at the individual vendors. You have your use cases. Make sure that they match up to your use cases. You don't need to get the black box with all the blinking, flashing lights to manage your risk. It could be something as simple as a piece of software you can install on your endpoints that manages the risk to an acceptable level. So it's all about first understanding your business, understanding your threats, and then understanding the landscape of security controls available to manage those risks. And once you've done that, then it's a case of discovering what's out there. And don't just go for the first tool that you see, because it may be very expensive. So from a cost perspective and a cost benefit analysis is not going to match up, but from a cost perspective, it's too expensive and it may not fit your use case. It may not manage the risk. Overall, it may not be fit for purpose for you. And it could be incredibly hard to implement. So it's a big game of discovery, lots of calls, lots of Googling. It is quite a long process. It's not just a case of going onto Amazon, putting something in your basket and pressing buy. It's not as easy as that. I mean, I wish it was. It'd be incredibly easy, but no, unfortunately, it's not that like that. That's
a good point. Yeah. And, when you think about figuring out, what's going to be a good match for somebody, as far as these, I was just going to say something about these ransomware attacks, figuring out, this is what I was thinking. When you say a threat analysis, if someone doesn't understand what that means, it basically look at all your stuff and say to yourself, what would a bad guy want? What would somebody want? And if you say, well, I don't really have anything that they would want, so this isn't really a big deal. Now you ask yourself, well, what would I do if I didn't have access to this information? Let's just say that they don't really even want it. They just want to make sure they're going to lock it up so that you can't have it. And when you look at your information that way, it's a completely different way than just thinking, well, I don't have any information that somebody else would want. Yeah, maybe you don't, but they know that you need it. So that's another thing to think about too when you're going through, doing the threat analysis, saying, what do I have out there that somebody might want to get their hands on, or what would be really bad if I couldn't get my hands on it?
And that's where I think there should be more of a crossover between like cybersecurity and data protection, because something is as simple as a data impact analysis or data privacy impact analysis. Are you going to realize the kind of criticality of the data that's being hosted on these systems, and measuring the worth of this data if it goes missing? Because it's not just the systems they're after. They don't care what kind of machines you have. They want the data. After all, when a ransomware attack happens, they publish your data. So the real value is in your data, not your systems.
That's one thing, obviously, people need to start to think about. So so how do they go about developing cybersecurity talent? How does an organization either invest in somebody, or, because this is a very expensive thing to just hire a new position. First of all, these jobs are very, very hard to get someone to fill, because the need is completely much greater than the supply. So how does somebody develop somebody in-house or out-house, or what are your suggestions with this?
So initially, the business leaders need to understand that cybersecurity is a problem, and then they need to hire somebody who's able to deliver a security strategy to help align the potential security moving forward to the business. That's going to be someone like an information security manager or a CISO. That's always going to be the first port of call. We need somebody that's going to build that governance structure before anything else can happen. Governance first, technology later. We need to make sure the processes and policies are in place, they're being managed, and they're being measured. Then we can look at hiring cybersecurity engineers, and it can even just be somebody that's in the IT team, somebody that already knows the IT systems. And that's why I tell a lot of the people that I mentor is, if you're working on a help desk at a company, inquire if they've got an internal security team, because you're going to be very beneficial, because you know the systems, you know the modus operandi of the business. Go ahead and move across, and you will be much more beneficial than hiring someone externally. But if you are going to hire externally, make sure you know what you're hiring for. A lot of the times they just copy and paste job description and go, all right, let's hope that this person can do this job, instead of going, well, what do we actually need the person to do? What are we looking for? Are we looking for this glitter covered unicorn, or are we looking for somebody to help us just manage a firewall, or help us install antivirus and manage it? If it's something as simple as that, then let's make these job descriptions more simple and hire the right talent, instead of guessing what you need. That's the worst part as a security leader. That's the worst thing you can do, is if you guess your requirements. Know your requirements and hire for them.
That's a very good point. And, one thing I think that's going to be developing over the next little bit is, like you had just mentioned, that in-house person. That's an invaluable person, because like you said, they know the ins and the outs of how the, things flow within that organization. And I think what's going to develop is going to be this position that's going to be the BISO, the Business Information Security Officer, who can help communicate between the CISO and, like I mentioned before, the regular folks, and try to implement some things, and maybe have some compliance things that people need to follow, and just be that little bridge there between that. And that's going to be a lot less expensive for an organization, small, medium. When you get into the big, you could probably afford to hire a separate person or outsource the whole thing. But for a small organization to say, I'm going to give this person a little extra money, they're going to learn how to work with this person, and this is what we need them to implement. Like you just mentioned, once you identify what it is that you need to have protected, what is it you need this person to do, that you could probably just have somebody in a small business that could take on the additional tasks, and they would like it. They'd get a little extra money, and overall it'd be less expensive than for the company to have to hire somebody.
Yeah, it's actually quite a simple thing when you put it like that.
But I think it's so intimidating. People, they get overly intimidated that they don't know where to start. I talk to small business owners all the time, and that's what they say. They say, oh, I know I got to do something, but I have no idea where to start. Everybody in my company uses the same password. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Let's start there. That might be a good place.
That's a really good place to start.
Oh my goodness. Right, Robbie's sending me a message here. So I got to type back. We got to see if we have any questions from anybody. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're waiting to see if we get any questions?
No, I think we've covered the topic quite well so far.
What are your top 5 tips that you would give to somebody that's trying to get themselves organized, or at least on the right road here?
So if I was a business leader, I think the first thing I would want to do would be, I'd first like to understand cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go into it in great detail, but I just need to know, why does it impact me? So just getting that general awareness. That's my first tip. And then my second tip will be, where can it impact me? What do I have? What's my business vulnerable to? And the good question to ask yourself is, if it was to go down today, what would cripple my business? So what critical servers and applications do you need to be up, running, secure for your customers to use your service? Something like that is going to really open your eyes to think, okay, if this goes down, this is a single point of failure in the business and we're not going to be able to generate revenue. And then just looking at what's available out there, looking at news, looking at different news articles and understanding where other businesses have gone wrong and thinking, hey, we're making that mistake. Let's see if we're vulnerable to this. Because a lot of the times business leaders read the news and they see all these big data breaches, and that's where some of the curiosity comes from. I've been in a position where I've had a phone call and it's been the VP, and I'm like, why is the VP calling me? I'm just an analyst. And he's going, I've seen this in the news, are we safe? And I said, well, throw me over the news article and I'll have a look. And I'll be like, yeah, we're safe from that. So okay, good. And he'd throw me over another article and he'd be like, are we safe from this? I'd be like, no, we need to do stuff about it. It was like, right, meeting, 10 minutes. Just because he's got some pressure on his back to make sure the business is secure, so he can tell the CEO, like, yeah, we've definitely secured ourselves from it. But it's amazing that these conversations happen quite high up in the board. And with that, it's quite daunting to think, well, they're already talking about it, but nothing's coming down to us. And sometimes that can be having broken paths of communication. So another tip for business leaders is try to open up a channel of communication with your technical teams. Try to understand their problems, where they're suffering, because technical debt can become a security problem. It can become more vulnerabilities. Broken processes can introduce more vulnerabilities into the organization. Just knowing where their problems is and where you can help alleviate them can drastically increase your security posture without being the top 10 hackers in the world. It's as simple as just asking questions and opening up communication avenues.
And like you mentioned, somebody seeing something in the news and saying, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen to us, kind of thing. I think, unfortunately, some of the attacks on some of the critical infrastructure that we've seen lately over here, in the US with like Colonial Pipeline and then the meat packing plant, when regular people, even like a CEO, regular person saying, I have to wait in line to get gas because of a cyber attack, they can kind of relate to that a lot more than they can, like the SolarWinds attack. That's something that it's like, well, I don't even know what that, yeah, it was a data breach, but I don't really even understand it. But when you think about, I'm paying more for a hamburger because the meat packing plant was attacked, and that kind of a thing, that kind of brings it all like, oh, this is starting to affect everybody, which obviously, as we know, it already is. But I mean, for the regular non-technical person to actually say, yeah.
I mean, if somebody messed around with my beef burgers, I'll be pretty angry too. I mean, I'll be like, right, cybersecurity is a problem. We need to fix this now, today. What do I need to buy? Because I am not paying that much for a beef burger again.
That's hysterical. Oh my goodness. Oh, so I don't know. I'm going to ask if there's any questions out there. If anybody has a question and they want to type it, I'm assuming it's going to pop up here somewhere and we're going to see it on the screen. So if anybody has a question out there, fire away. I guess it'll just pop up in that big white box that we were just looking at. Yeah, I don't know. What time is it where you are?
It's currently 15:30, so 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m.
Okay, it's 10:30 where I am over here on the East Coast. So I'm guessing we don't have any questions. Well, this was really, really good. I'm glad that we had the chance to have you on here. You're a wealth of knowledge. You want to share a little bit more about you? Let's talk about you for a minute.
So so interestingly, I work with a group called the Cyber Job Hunting, and we're just building our community out now. We're currently at 5,000 plus members, and it's just a free community dedicated to helping people break into the industry, helping nurture talent, helping people with any CV and resume problems that they may have. So we're currently on a massive drive to try and increase the community and increase visibility. So if you're watching this and you're a job seeker and you're really interested in cybersecurity, head on over. Free community. You can take all the free resources. We have lots of free resources there. lots of wealth of knowledge in there. We have some very talented people in there, so it's a really good place to be.
Wow, that's 5,000. You have 5,000 members?
Yeah, I think we're at 5,200 at the moment.
Wow, that's great. And where can people go to get there? What's the website?
So we've just got a LinkedIn page set up, and it's simply Cyber Jobs Hunting. If you click on there and you click on sign up, it will take you straight to the Discord server, and there's no signing up needed. Just simply having a Discord account, and you can jump into the server.
That's great. That's definitely great. I'll help promote that too, because I mean, the more we got to get more people into this industry. In Connecticut, I'm on the CMMC is a cybersecurity program the Department of Defense is doing here, and on the Connecticut Coalition. That's where I live, is in Connecticut. And we're talking about how we have to help these young kids learn that there are opportunities here, and then give them a path. Right? Everybody needs a path. You can't just say, "Oh, yeah, we need to fill this." These jobs in this industry, unless you tell them this is how you have to do it. And there are a lot of, I mean, I'm a non-technical person. There's a lot of opportunities for non-technical people too. I mean, we all have to kind of dive into this and find out, which area interests us or what we're good at, so that's great that you're doing that. That's really, really great. I'm happy to hear that.
It's really interesting. That's an interesting point you brought up about there being non-tech. I think the skills gap, or the proverbial skills gap, is in the non-technical part of security. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing this problem now where lots of people have been influenced by the likes of Mr. Robot and want to become a hacker, a pen tester. So the pen testing market is incredibly saturated. There is so much talent there that's just not finding roles because there's not enough roles. And then the likes of GRC, data protection, are crying out for more people. And it's like, hang on, without GRC, you don't need technical security, because governance drives the requirement for technical security. Mm-hmm. And you're more likely as a GRC person to go into a role of information security management. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to help create, some kind of a path for some of the non-technical people, because they just think, exactly, I got to go do pen testing or something like that. But that's not it. That's like this BISO position that I'm talking about. I read an article somewhere about this, and I thought, I think this is going to be a big thing. This is going to be a big role that small and medium organizations are going to need to fill with somebody. So, okay, we have a question here. So investment in cybersecurity should be by choice or by force? Okay, that's a good question. That's what we're supposed to be talking about anyway.
So I think, unfortunately, it's by force. But personally, as a cybersecurity professional, I'm always going to say it should be done proactively by choice. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most cybersecurity is done as a reaction to a security incident that's adversely impacted the security posture of an organization, and then suddenly it's a problem for them because it's on their doorstep.
Mm-hmm. We did just have another comment too, that somebody had said something about how you don't have to have 5 years of experience to be doing an entry-level position, which is true. That's the problem. I've seen this funny little thing on LinkedIn where there's a bunch of these little 10-year-old kids, and it's like, you have to have 20 years of experience before you can apply. And they're all like, we don't have that. Yeah, no kidding. So whoever made that comment, you're absolutely right. For an entry-level position, whoever's writing up the ads, let's be realistic here about how you're trying to get somebody. Don't make the requirements so high. So I guess that might be it. I don't know if we have any more questions here, but thank you very, very much for your time and everything, and all your awesome information. And I'm so happy that you shared that that LinkedIn page. I'm going to go on my LinkedIn, and I'm going to go find it, and I'm going to share it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you for having me on.
No problem. You take care. Hopefully Robbie's going to show us how to log off of here. I don't know how he's going to do that. It's like the man in the sky right now. Anyway, I guess we can just X out of here. All right, well, you take care.